Strike Iranian military targets with precision munitions. Nothing is slowing down, even if energy infrastructure is being spared for now.
Nothing has really been stopped other than that one threatened attack. We see continued strikes from the U.S., Israel, but also Iran, with all of this continuing to take place. So it is, in many respects, steady state, the way that it has been for the majority of this conflict.
With more incoming, Becca, can you remind us, the Marines are steaming their way from San Diego, and they're not alone. What will manpower look like? What will the potential for boots on the ground look like by the end of this week?
So by the end of this week, you will have one of the Marine expeditionary units actually there. And then there's another one that's going to be departing from the continental United States and possibly going through the Indo-Pacific in order to get to the Middle East. But at the end of the week, you're going to have additional Marines. You're going to have some additional firepower. And, you know, it does expand the menu of options for President Trump after that 5-day, interregnum period, if you will, if he decides that he wants to do something, because Iran has not played ball. And so I think at the end of the day, we have to see this as a continued threat for the use of force.
Well, and not playing ball specifically on opening the Strait of Hormuz. CBS, Becca, reported today that there's been about a dozen mines laid in the strait. This has been a live conversation for a while. The president continually contended we haven't seen reports that mines have been laid. We've been taking out mining ships. But how would that change things if indeed these things are in the water?
It would certainly change things, particularly if a ship were to run aground over them and there to be some type of, either damage or even more significant than that. So that would be truly a sea change in the strait. It also would mean that the U.S. would need to consider mine-sweeping operations prior to any potential escort.
As a potential future leader, we understand that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are speaking on behalf of the United States. Are these going through back channels? Will there need to be a formal process for allies to understand what's going on?
Well, Witkoff and Kushner probably will be continuing on as the president's envoys. I hope in this round of negotiations they bring expertise, because there's going to be a real need to understand the dynamics of what's left behind, both on the nuclear side and in the other issues. The Iranian side, I'm a little bit skeptical that the spokesperson is the Speaker of the Parliament. I'd be much more comfortable if, in fact, the Foreign Minister, Araghchi, who had been their negotiator previously, was speaking for Iran. In terms of intermediaries, I'm pretty sure that both Egypt and Qatar are acting in that manner. There's probably no direct talks. At some point, there has to be a direct engagement for the two sides to look each other in the eyes. But I don't think we're there yet. I think Egypt and Qatar are playing the role that they had played previously and carrying messages back and forth, which has the benefit of continuing the dialogue. But, you know, it's like a little game of telephone. Are you sure that your intermediaries are conveying the messages accurately the way they've heard it?
Well, and when we consider the reception of messages, it's not just about those negotiating. It's also the way in which messaging around this war is being received for the domestic audience, both for President Trump as he contends with higher gas prices here in the U.S. But I would imagine the same for Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel. How should we consider what domestic political pressures he is facing and the way he'll move forward through either a diplomatic off-ramp or a continuation of the military combat operations?
I think Netanyahu's situation is much simpler than it is for President Trump. The degree of support for this war in Israel among Israeli Jews tops 90%, and that's unlikely to diminish. And therefore, the prime minister is in a very good position to determine the narrative of so-called victory. He may be unhappy privately. He may convey that to the president privately. But I think when push comes to shove, he'll be able to make the argument to the Israeli people that Iran, at least for the foreseeable future, no longer represents an existential threat. It's a much different argument for our president, given the degree to which all of us are confused about what our objective is, what our end game is, what the off-ramp is, and how it's going to affect us in the grocery store and at the gas pump.
Mr. Ambassador, we saw your op-ed that you co-wrote with Aaron David Miller in the New York Times titled "Don't Pin Your Hopes on a New Middle East." You write, history has not been kind to the transformation peddlers in the Middle East. And I wonder in our remaining moment if you think we are avoiding mistakes or repeating them.
Well, unfortunately, every administration has been unwilling to learn lessons from the past and has been repeating mistakes. This is a region in which there are very severe endemic problems that seem impervious to change, whether it's authoritarianism and corruption, crony capitalism, the inequality of wealth. And that's really the underpinning of what has become a very violent region. We've watched the Gaza war, the war in Lebanon, and now the Iran war, but there are wars all over the place in Sudan and elsewhere. And we need an outcome here which not only resolves the Iran issue or the Lebanon issue, but which involves a multilateral effort to get at some of these underlying social, political, and economic problems. And I've seen no evidence that that's on the agenda. I'm only hoping that our policy planners are thinking in that direction.
All right, Ambassador, thank you for joining us. Daniel Kurtzer, former U.S. ambassador to Israel in the George W. Bush administration, now professor of Middle East policy studies at Princeton University. Thank you so much. President Trump is walking off of Air Force One right now, having returned from Tennessee. If he brings or makes any remarks, we'll bring them to you here on Bloomberg TV and radio. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio. Alongside Joe Matthew, I'm Kaylee Lyons. In tonight's Power Brief, 2 pilots of an Air Canada Express plane were killed when it collided with a fire truck shortly after landing at New York's LaGuardia Airport Sunday evening. The flight took off from Montreal with 72 passengers and 4 crew on board, according to the company who operated it. About 40 people were injured in the collision, according to the U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who also addressed concerns about staffing of air traffic controllers at LaGuardia during a press conference this afternoon.
As our airports go, LaGuardia is a very well-staffed airport. We're a couple controllers short in total, but it is a well-staffed airport. Again, 33 certified controllers that operate out of the tower here at LaGuardia.
The airport reopened today around 2 p.m. local time at a reduced capacity with delays, as the National Transportation Safety Board says they are investigating the crash.
The U.S. Supreme Court signaling division during a 2-hour-long hearing in a case that could impact the future of mail-in ballots. The case involves a Mississippi law that allows mail-in ballots be counted as long as they arrive within 5 business days of Election Day. Republican officials are arguing that law and similar provisions in 29 states are incompatible with federal law. Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who could be key votes in this decision, both voicing concern about the impact this case could have. The lawsuit is one part of the efforts of President Trump and his Republican allies to change state and federal election law ahead of this November's midterm elections. In addition to this case, the president is demanding the passage of the Save America Act, a voter ID bill that would largely eliminate mail-in ballots as part of any deal to fund the Department of Homeland Security.
And we'll get into that potential funding deal or not, and other stories as we turn now to our political panel. Bloomberg Politics contributors Rick Davis, Republican strategist and partner at Stone Court Capital, alongside Democratic analyst Jeannie Sheehan Zaino, Democracy visiting fellow at Harvard Kennedy School's Ash Center. Welcome to you both, and we do want to get to Congress, but we have to begin with the narrative that was driving financial markets today, a confusing one at that, Rick, as President Trump suggests that he is, or the U.S., is actively talking with Iran, and Iran suggests that no talks are happening. How do you read this disagreement, and who do you consider most credible here? Is it the president, or is it an American adversary?
Can I say neither? I think that both of them are playing the ref, right? I mean, while we're here in March Madness, why don't we use a basketball term? Donald Trump is appealing to the public to try and create some stability around the war effort that he's undermining or taking up. And the Iranians are showing that they are resistant to any. They get the deal they want. This is not a surprise, but it does indicate a willingness by both parties to start playing a game that hopefully could result in a ceasefire and potentially some kind of an agreement covering the Strait of Hormuz and the nuclear material that Iran still possesses.
Jeannie, does this evolving rhetoric, remembering it was Saturday night, about 7:45 when President Trump posted the 48-hour ultimatum. Apparently, we were, based on what he said in Memphis today, we were already in talks with the Iranians at that point. And now, of course, much has happened since then, to the point where the markets couldn't really gather everything even in real time today. Massive rally tempered by what we heard from Iran. Oil prices down sharply, then coming back up a bit based on what we heard from Iran. Does this betray the concept of this administration having a plan?
It is, I think, just such an unsettling place for all of us to be as Americans.